Hey Derek, how's it going? Pin message.
Thanks everyone for showing up, by the way. We really appreciate it. Um,
Amrats, Xavier, how's it going? Dignib, how's it going? Derek, Trillion. Mm.
hey, Tijo. What's up, man?
Hey,
Not much, man. Not much going on. Um,
I'm
ready for
very
these hard-hitting questions?
sure.
It's going to be pretty general questions. I got them. I got most of them from a website, so it's just general questions about atheism. If you don't want to answer them, that's fine. You can just jump to the next one. So,
Sure. Thank you for the super chat, Antipode Cereal. Long live Ukraine. Kagito, how's it going?
all right, Tom. First question: how you been lately?
Mm, Overall, super relaxed.
Relaxed. That's good, man. How's the atheist church going so far?
Uh, Pretty good, I guess. I don't really know yet. Still doing research into the tax filing stuff. Standard churches are pretty easy, but since I want to do the um, apartment building thing, that's a little more complex.
All right. Um, and the next question is, what would you do for a Klondike bar, Tom?
Nothing. I don't really like them that much. I like the ice cream sandwiches better. I forget what they're called though.
All right, Tom. So I'm going to start asking questions now. Um, Answer them as best as you can, and whatever. We'll see where it goes. Um, how would you define atheism?
The position that there is no evidence to believe in a god.
All right. Do you act according to what you believe there is no God in, or what you don't believe in, lack belief in God?
Both.
So sometimes you go one way, sometimes the other way, or
Yeah. I mean, if I do not believe that there is a trampoline, I don't jump off the building. So it's a combination of both the fact I do believe that when I hit the ground I will splat, and that I don't believe that there is a trampoline there. Both of those things combine to me not jumping.
all right. Do you think it's inconsistent for someone who lacks belief in God to work against God's existence by attempting to show that God does not exist?
No. Could you ask that? Ask that one again.
Yeah, yeah. Do you think it's inconsistent for someone who lacks belief in God to work against God's existence by attempting to show that God does not exist?
No, because they could have a position that's political in nature. So the fact that people believe leads to them doing lots of silly things. So you try to show he doesn't exist to eliminate the people who believe in him, not regardless of whether or not you think he exists. So it might be
Okay.
contradictory if you believe he doesn't exist and are then like trying to uh, prove he doesn't exist for the sake of making him angry. That would be a contradiction.
All right. How sure are you that your atheism properly represents reality?
How sure am I? 90 something percent.
Good answer. Uh, how sure are you that your atheism is correct?
90 something percent. Same question.
All right, cool.
Kagito asked, when am I going to
How
publish my book? I haven't found a publisher for the epistemology one, and my co author for the morality one was hit really, really hard by COVID. Lost a lot of his family and his financial support. So that one's been postponed.
all right, Tom. So how would you define what truth is?
And corresponds to reality.
right? Why do you believe your atheism is a justifiable position to hold?
Because we can show that there is no evidence, that all the supposed evidences fail objectively, and things that lack any evidence are most likely imaginary. Things start as imaginary until demonstrated otherwise. So it's rational to conclude God does not exist and it's just a figment of people's imagination.
Are you a materialist or physicalist or what?
Yes, those physicalism is a subset of materialism, specifically only having to do with the mind.
All right. Do you affirm or deny that atheism is a worldview?
Can be, depends on the person who believes it.
All right. Not all atheists are agnostic to Christianity, but for those who are, why the antagon? I'm sorry. Not all atheists are antagonistic to Christianity, but for those who are antagonistic, why the antagonism?
Because religion has profoundly negative impacts in many people's lives, and the religious people who do believe in a God have impacts on political laws that impact people's lives in a way that they don't like, and so they are antagonistic towards the fact that the doctrines of that religion have an impact on society and the way that they live, whether they like it or not.
All right. If you're a one-time believer of the Christian God, what caused you to deny his existence?
Major depression, praying for help and never getting it.
All right. Do you believe the world would be better off without religion?
If we had a positive position to replace it with, then yes. But I think that it served its purpose in the past, kind of like spears. So would the world be better to have never had spears? Probably not. It served a purpose in the past, but now we have things that are better. So if we replaced all spears with the new thing, then yes, it would be better.
All right. Do you believe the world would be better off without Christianity?
Same thing.
Okay. Do you believe that a faith in a God or gods is a mental disorder?
Mm, not based off of the clinical definition of mental disorder, but I do think it's probably going to be seen as one in the far future.
All right. But must God be known through the scientific method?
What? What was the question?
Yeah. Must God be known through the scientific method?
No, any method that can differentiate imagination from reality works. Reiki, Ricky DePere asks, can you elaborate on worldview? Depends on the person, please. Like you can define more things, and like depends on how you define atheism. If you define atheism as the belief God doesn't exist and humanism, atheism plus or whatever, then they have a worldview. So if you can define atheism however you want, and if you start with that and add more things in, then yes, it can be a worldview.
All right. This one is if you answered yes to the previous question, Tom, which says, how do you avoid a category mistake by requiring material evidence for an immaterial God? But I guess that's not what you believe, that you need a material explanation for a God, right? So,
Well, the argument is that you shouldn't ask for any material consequence for evidence of a God, so no novel testable predictions. But that's false. So this is shifting the burden of proof. It's saying, oh, the fact that we don't have any evidence doesn't disprove a God because you're not supposed to look for evidence in any of the places we know. Haha, so it's not debunked, but that's just shifting the burden of proof. You would still need to provide evidence, and the fact that there's no evidence in the methods that we know are reliable is a good reason to reject your position. Just simply saying it doesn't disprove your God is burden of proof fallacy. Sully Sullivan asks, now that you've been blessed by God with hot blondes and your depression is cured, do you believe? No, because it wasn't cured by God. God didn't do it, or at least he didn't do it when I prayed. So he would have had to have done it when I prayed for that to happen. J. Verjara asked, Tom, when a theist is asked to give a defense of a property of his or her deity, is a logical or valid defense saying it's so by definition, why are they committing a fallacy? It's not a fallacy. It's just not justified. So like anybody can define anything in any way they want. Say it's that way by definition. It's just arbitrary. So you can just define it as not that case, and that would be an equally supported position. So it isn't actually evidence to say something is that way by definition. All right, go ahead, Frank.
All right, brother. Uh, let's see. Do we have any purpose as human beings?
Sure. I think there's an objective morality, so I can think the purpose is to try and be happy, I guess.
Is that your purpose, Tom?
Sure.
Okay. If we do have purpose, can you, as an atheist, please explain how the purpose is determined?
I think objective morality is determined by looking at the evidence of moral intuition and moral progress, creating a principle to describe the pattern, and make predictions based off the principle. So exactly the same way as everything in science, everything in reality is discovered.
All right. Where does morality come from?
Laws of physics. I think it's going to
Okay.
be a higher order emergent property. I think we're going to discover that morality is a physical thing, just like we discovered time is a physical thing, even though we both thought both of them were conceptual. Kagito asks, why did you dye your hair? It was a subscriber goal. Once I got to 10,000, people suggested or super chatted me to dye my hair. So,
Tom. Are there moral absolutes?
yes.
All right. If there are moral absolutes, could you name a few of them?
Any involuntary imposition of will is immoral.
All right. Do you believe there's such a thing as evil? If so, what is it?
Uh, Sort of. I think evil is synonymous with immorality. So, in that case, yes.
All right. If you believe that the God of the Old Testament is morally bad, by what standard do you judge that he is bad?
The standard that we can discover by following the evidence of moral intuition, moral progress. Drowning babies is objectively immoral. God drowned babies. God is immoral.
All right, good, good. Uh, what would it take you to believe in God?
Novel testable predictions, evidence, same with any position.
All right. What would constitute sufficient evidence for God's existence?
Lots of novel testable predictions.
All right. Must this evidence be rationally based, archaeological, testable in a lab, etc., or what?
Well, it has to differentiate imagination from reality, and the only way I know to do that is with some verifiable scientific means. But if there's some other way, that'd be fine too.
All right. Do you think that a society that is run by Christians or atheists would be safer? Why?
Yes, by atheists, I think it would be safer by looking at the data. So if we just compare countries that have the highest proportion of Christians and highest proportion of atheists, we can see that the atheists are far more peaceful, far less violent, far better in pretty much every social condition. And so run by atheists would be better.
All right, good, good. Do you believe in free will?
No.
Okay, you don't. All right. Uh, let's see. If you affirm evolution that the universe will continue to expand forever, then do you think it is probable that given enough time, brains would evolve to the point of exceeding mere physical limitations and become free of the physical and temporal, and thereby become deity and not be restricted by time and space? If not, why not? How does one lead to the other?
So evolution is just biological, but I'm thinking he means just time here, I guess, or does he mean that will brains naturally evolve beyond the physical? No, it's because it's only evolving physically. If there was a non-physical realm, we might eventually get to the point where they can be non-physical, but as far as we know, there is no such realm. It'll definitely evolve to the point where we can technologically upgrade them to be digital. That'll be cool, but I don't think there's a physical, and if there isn't a physical, then evolution can't evolve to be non-physical.
All right, if you think it's going to be some sort of digital mind, are you saying that it's probable that some sort of God exists already that created this universe?
No, digital as in we're going to make computers and upload our brain to computers, so it doesn't exist yet.
Okay. All right. Have you ever heard of Pascal's wager, and what's your thoughts on
Have I ever heard of Pascal's wager? Yes, I have heard of Pascal's wager.
it?
And I think that the argument is fundamentally flawed because the probability of getting to heaven is exactly the same whether or not God exists. So there could be an evil God who only allows atheists into heaven. There could be a God who only allows people who pick their nose on a Tuesday into heaven. So belief in a God may not get you into heaven any more than belief in potatoes will get you into heaven. And even if there's no God, the natural conditions that allow people into heaven could be equally as probable to be based on some random belief system. So there's no probabilistic difference getting into a God or getting into heaven, whether there's a God or not. Because whether or not there's a God, the probability is still exactly the same. That getting the belief in God will get you into heaven, as belief in potatoes will get you into heaven.
All right. Where does consciousness come from?
The brain.
The brain. Okay. Do you think atheism will grow in America?
It is definitively. We can just measure it doing that.
All right. What are some famous atheists from the past that stand out to you?
Uh, Bertrand Russell, probably. Hume, maybe.
And what? Uh, well, I'll just get to the next one. What are famous arguments against the belief in God that stand out to you?
Mine, the ones I invented, the fact that everything starts as imaginary until demonstrated otherwise, and until you provide evidence, it's rational to conclude that whatever someone is asserting is just a figment of imagination and not a thing in reality.
All right. What are some famous theist arguments that stand out to you?
The Hindu argument that it accurately predicted the age of the universe within like 95% accuracy of saying it was 4.3 billion years old when the earth was created. That's the best evidence. Mary B asks in the YouTube chat, do you think that some churches do provide helpful benefits like donating to movements, volunteering, and organizing for humanitarian causes? If they were gone, would that be a step back? So I think churches do that, but I think if they were replaced by something better, like my church idea, or secular churches that donate more to science, those would be a far better benefit. So even though churches, which use most of their money on buying music and buildings and things and doing worship services, as opposed to secular organizations which spend most of their money on actually doing the services, it would probably be better to be replaced by that. Kagito, I dyed my hair because it was a subscriber goal for getting 10,000 subscribers.
So, what's your next subscriber goal, Tom?
No idea. Whatever people super chat me to do, pretty much.
All right, good, good. All right, Tom. Let's see. What caused the universe to exist?
Uh, the pre-existing quantum field that has always existed.
All right. What explains the fine tuning of the universe?
And interconnected determining forces in nature that are existed prior to the Big Bang.
All right. What's the point of atheist groups? How can you have a community for something you don't believe in?
The point of atheist groups is to try to get rid of a bad ideology that negatively impacts society, and we have a common interest in the fact that certain ideologies, specifically God related, are some of the primary causes to those things.
All right. What is the Euthyphro dilemma? Do you think it's effective?
Yes, the Euthyphro dilemma is something good because God said it's good, or did God say it's good because it's good based off some independent criterion? Yes, it's very effective at showing that something can't be objectively moral simply because God said it's good, and it must be some independent set of facts outside of consciousness that makes it good.
All right, Tom. So this is the last question. What if you're wrong about your atheism?
Then I'm wrong.
If you're wrong, then you're wrong. Like
Yep.
that's it. Like
Yep.
pretty much.
Yeah. Like,
All right, Tom. That's all I had. I had 40 questions, so you answered all of them.
cool.
Uh, I don't know if anyone wants to jump on and ask Tom any more questions, or I don't know, whatever you want to do from here on is fine.
Why
Thanks
is
for doing this,
milk?
by the way, Tom. I appreciate it.
Yep. Best question ever. Why is milk?
Uh, yeah, I streamed this live on my thing, so
Cool.
that'll get some views. All right. Anyone want to talk to Tom, ask him some questions or anything, or do you want to move this to the after show? What do you want to do?
Might as well just stay here. But yeah, I have a link in the my chat. So if anybody wants to join and ask questions, feel free. Or super chat me questions or whatever.
Oh, there's some.
Somebody raised their hand.
Yep.
Interesting questions are so much better than boring questions, in my opinion. That's a hot take.
I got this off a website, Tom. I thought it was pretty good, right? Or
Yeah, I think there are pretty generic questions for atheists that many Christians ask. I actually was invited to do for Ask an Atheist Day some of the same questions for reasons to believe. They have
nice.
they asked me to answer a few and send in a recording for their ministry, which was interesting. Cogito ergo sum, do you support eternal quantum field over the infinite regress and why? Technically that could still count as an infinite regress. I don't take a reason one way or the other. I think that a necessary quantum field or whatever and infinite regresses are either synonymous or functionally equivalent. I don't really care one way or the other.
MP3 Kyle, what question do you have, man?
Hey, what's up, guys? I just wanted to ask because I never really heard this response or this question asked towards Tom. It's referring to the objective morality. Like, what would you argue back to if somebody said, "What's the best possible world for like subjective like ideas of like gay marriage or just I don't know, like random like Republican talking points or some shit like that."
So I think the best of all possible worlds is one where it's impossible to force anyone to do anything they don't consent to doing. So gay marriage is perfectly fine. There's nothing there that's forcing someone to do something they don't consent to doing. Republican talking points. I think that the trans women in sports, I think that the TERFs are correct and that that's going to destroy women's sports and probably shouldn't happen. What other Republican talking points are there? Weed should be legal. Republicans are wrong about that. Education should be voucher based. I think the libertarians are right about that. I don't know. What are the other Republican talking points?
I guess I already know about abortion. Then.
Yeah, abortion is
people,
abortion should be should be technically illegal, but only when we have the technological ability to remove the fetus without causing any harm to the mother.
So as of right now, though, like
yeah, right now it's just a.
So do you think, referring to the best of all possible worlds, should we not be having abortion then? Or should we have abortion? Or should the government not be impending or imposing on people's women's
well, in the best of all possible worlds
body?
In the best of all possible worlds, it should be impossible to harm anyone without their consent. So that it should be impossible to harm the baby without its consent. And it would also be impossible to have a person be inserted into another person without their consent. So unwanted pregnancies would be impossible, and it would be impossible to like kill a baby anyway. So both of those things would be impossible in the best of all possible worlds. In our world, since we don't have that option, it's a justified immoral action to allow abortion because women should have rights over their own bodies, even at the cost of someone else's life who might be invading their body without consent. So it's self-defense essentially.
Okay. Yeah. Well. Yeah. I totally agree.
Hey, Tom. Thanks, MP3 Kyle. I appreciate it. Tom, do you want me to keep asking you questions, or do you want to do something else?
We can just hang out here and do whatever.
All right, cool. I have a few more questions. I'm going to ask you questions that a Christian would ask. So, and if anyone wants to raise their hand and come in, then they can ask whatever question they want. All right, Tom, here we go. Are you certain that God does not exist, or that you cannot know whether he exists?
What? Say it again.
Are you certain that God does not exist, or that you can't know whether he exists?
Well, you don't need certainty for knowledge, so I can know he doesn't exist even without certainty. I don't need certainty. I don't think I'm certain about anything other than I exist, but I don't need certainty to know things. Sully says,
next question.
Trans women in sports is not a political issue. That's wow. Wow, Sully. Wow.
All right, Tom, did you use your 5 senses to come to this decision?
Sure. I guess, I don't know. Is thinking and rationality one of the senses? So 6 senses, I guess? Sure.
Given that God is by definition a spirit, how much sense would it make to decide whether he exists or not using your five physical senses?
Any novel testable predictions that could confirm his existence would be enough. That can be confirmed through future testable prediction. That'd be great. Javier Ajara asks, Tom, as far as you know, is any member of any religion in the history of humanity has been able to demonstrate any deity to the supernatural kind? No. Unless Jesus actually rose from the dead, then that would count, sort of.
All right, Tom. So you said you use your reasoning to determine that God does not exist, right?
Yep.
All right. How do you know your reasoning is working correctly?
Because I can't believe I exist and be wrong.
Oh. Did your reasoning? Did you use your reasoning to determine what that your reasoning was working?
No.
All right. And it says, do you see a problem with that? But we're not going to ask that question.
Well, the answer was no, so it couldn't be a problem unless I said yes.
Right. And says, the Bible says that skepticism about God is the result of a mind suppressing what is known to be true. Have you ever tried doubting your doubts about God?
Yes, I used to be a Christian, so I used to believe in God. Sully says, trans women in sports has literally nothing to do with the laws or the government, so it's not a political issue. Oh my God, Sully, that's not how politics works. Thing can be a political issue, even if it has literally nothing to do with any kind of laws. Like, that's most of the things. Like, most of the things that major politicians talk about have nothing to do with the laws that they're actually going to pass. It's just virtue signaling to their base. Like, literally, like the definition of women. Like, if you saw in the hearing, the Supreme Court hearing, when one of the justices asked, can you give a definition of woman? This had literally nothing to do with anything, but they asked it anyway because it's politically charged. So the fact that a topic is political has nothing to do with whether or not any laws are going to be passed. It has everything to do with, does it get your base more polarized towards your side and against the other side? So it is a hugely political issue.
Let's let Arthrog 52 in. He has a question.
Yeah, are we allowed to ask like just general questions about anything?
Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. So I had a general question about like what we need to presuppose. As far as I can tell, I think we need to presuppose. Really?
Yep.
So I haven't thought about as much, and I don't know about as much, I'm sure, but I think that at the very least we need to presuppose that we can perceive reality to make to say any of our beliefs are reasonable. And other than that, we can only say our beliefs are reasonable from that presupposition.
Nope. So I can say that, like, I exist, and then I can say I believe I exist, but my belief I exist is independent from my existence. So, like, existence is an object. It's like a rock. The rock exists whether it believes it exists or not. And then I can say, I believe I exist. Now, entailed in that, in order to believe I exist, I must exist. So I'm reasonable in that. Even if I don't realize it.
I agree with Descartes, I think, therefore I am. But my question is, how do you expand from I exist to anything, any of my other beliefs are like reasonable?
All right. So the other ones would be more things you have to like sort of infer. So you can say there's some difference between my imagination and my experience. So I imagine a unicorn. I don't see a unicorn. Need some method to distinguish the two. And then we like the future testable prediction works because your imagination is very bad at predicting the future. Whereas if you like have a hypothesis that can accurately predict the future, it's more reasonable to believe that that corresponds to reality than your imagination. So you can build off of the things you experience to give probabilistic assessments of what's around you, again, without presuppositions.
I don't disagree, but I still don't see how you can expand from I exist. Testable predictions are a good way to figure things out. And there's a difference between imagination and reality to all of our claims about virtually anything that we perceive.
So testable predictions are a good way to differentiate imagination from reality. In that, we can say, I have a hypothesis there is an external world. If this is true, here's some testable predictions confirmed. That's a reason to believe in the external world. And so every single scientific hypothesis can be built out from just that.
Right, but the way we verify our predictions is based on perceiving things, and you can't verify that your perceptions are accurate as far as I can think of.
You don't need to. So if I say, I will predict that in the future, I will perceive that rock hitting that rock at this time, at this speed, whatever, and it happens, that's a good evidence of whatever model I use to make that prediction, because my imagination is very bad at predicting the future with any level of accuracy. But if there's a model that can, the model and my imagination are both parts of conceptual reality. They're things that we conceive of. But one kind is very good at predicting the future, one kind is very bad at predicting the future. So we can say this one kind that's very good at predicting the future is more likely to be true because it can predict the future.
But if we're verifying our predictions based on our perception that we haven't verified, and your definition of truth is what corresponds to reality, how could you say that any of your beliefs are reasonably true?
Because if it can predict the future, it's a better kind of an idea than one that can't predict the future. Our imagination can't accurately predict the future. Things that supposedly correspond to reality would, if they did, would be able to predict the future. So the fact that this does predict the future means it's more likely one of those things that does correspond than one of the ones that definitely doesn't, like our imagination.
Okay, fair enough. Do you want? Are we allowed to ask another question, or should I leave it for someone else?
Let Brandon ask first, then you can ask another one.
Sure, thank you. All right.
Well, I was wondering if you think that quantum mechanics can possibly point to the supernatural.
How quantum mechanics could point to the supernatural? I have no idea.
Okay. Cool.
I don't think it could. Unless, like, the supernatural made predictions that we could verify in quantum mechanics.
No, and it's kind of weird because quantum mechanics is weird in and of itself.
Sully says, it's wrong to consider an issue political just because politicians use it. People are too stupid to understand that it's not a political issue. They should question why politicians are using it. So I consider anything a political issue if it can affect the outcome of the voting. So if it can affect the outcome of the voting, that it's a political issue.
Hey, Hogroth or 52, you can ask your question now.
Sure. It was relating to your views on objective morality. If you're you said, I've heard you say a couple times through when I'm watching you, that the evidence for objective morality would be our moral intuitions and moral progress.
Yeah, that's
my question,
the phenomenon of morality that we see that we're using to build the hypothesis off of. It wouldn't confirm the hypothesis. It's what we're building the hypothesis off of.
What would you say the evidence is then?
The evidence would be if we can confirm the predictions that the model makes, which we haven't done yet.
Well, if you only have something, your phenomena, and you haven't made predictions off of it yet, why would you say it's reasonable to believe that morality is objective?
Well, I've made predictions that we just haven't confirmed them yet, because the reason I think it's true is because I find it highly likely.
I'm doing a stage with my buddies here.
What?
No, I just muted.
Well,
What?
prediction isn't really that valuable until it's confirmed, no?
Yes, but if you think that it's highly likely it will be confirmed, you can believe the hypothesis before it's confirmed. Like Einstein believed in general relativity before it was confirmed. You can believe it's true before you confirm the hypothesis if you think it's a good prediction that's likely to be confirmed.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, bye.
See you.
Anyone else have any other questions? Come on stage, guys. Come on. All right, I'll keep asking questions, Tom.
Okay. Frank, you still there? I can't hear you. Is Frank muted? Pika Pro asked, who has been your favorite person to debate? Darth Dawkins, maybe? Run on the platform that Elden Ring is a good game. I don't like Elden Ring that much. I got bored with it. Let's refresh the page. Frank, I still can't hear you. Can you hear me? Scotty, can you hear me?
I can hear you, no problem.
Okay.
Frank, you're not coming through, and he's currently muted.
Gotcha.
I'm back. I'm sorry, my internet went down. So.
Gotcha. Mr. Boss, T-Jump, do you
Sorry
smoke?
about that, Tom.
No, I do not smoke. I smoke nothing. Why do I hate baby Jesus? Because he's fat. That's why I hate baby Jesus. What's your position on the newfound herentism? Heard Dillahunty mention it, was curious on your position. I think merging foundationalism and coherentism just adds the problems of both and doesn't solve the problems of either. So I don't think it's good. It's not, I don't like it. A lot of squeaking. Is Frank being murdered? Hey, T-Jump, do you think prostitution is immoral if both parties are consensual? No, I do not think prostitution is immoral. Is there real meaning of life? Yes, I answered that question earlier. One of the 40. How did you lose weight? I lost weight by biking for 20 miles a day and then jogging. Biking for 20 miles and then jogging for 4 and then biking for 40. I worked up to biking 40, jogging 8. There was lots of exercise. Yada, yada, yada. If somebody somewhere someday someone successfully shows that there can be no successful removal of the human fetus from the mother, will you be completely opposed to abortion then? No. If there's literally no way to remove it without killing it, it'd still be a justified immoral action to kill it because it's in somebody else's body without their consent. Hey Frank, you back yet? No. Anybody in the chat got any other questions? The audience got any other questions? How would you rate Biden out of a scale from 1 to 10? I'd give him a 0. Give all presidents a 0. Kimmy Coes, hey man, random question I've been meaning to ask. When you become president, will you try to steer us towards using the metric system? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think that is like one of the bigger issues that will save people's lives. So I think it would be more of a comfort level thing, which is not as important. So once we solved all the big problems, then I might do it, but not until then. What is your chess level? I was ranked about 2000, 1900 to 2000. Do you admit you're a foundationalist? Yes, sort of. I think Cogito is my foundation. Run around. Prostitution is immoral if you're married? Only if you both agreed to a contract where you wouldn't do that, then it would technically be immoral. If you agreed to be in a marriage where you wouldn't cheat and you then cheated, that would technically be immoral. T-Jump, why do you go with the bare minimum? You've said before you wouldn't care if your offspring you used damaging substances. Why not be proactive and go with what we know? I have no idea what you're asking. Frank is franking. Why do you go with the bare minimum? I have no idea what you're asking, Alkaya. So I think that yes, doing drugs is not immoral. You should be able to do whatever drugs you want. but I have no idea what you're referring to. Opinion on Hobbes' argument of cogito? I don't know what Hobbes' argument of the cogito is. Fef, super chat. How much do you want to change your hair color? I'll pay for the new color. This one costs like $90. I went to a hair salon, but enough to cover whatever the dye is. Want me to go to a salon, enough to cover the salon. Which of these do you lean more towards? Capitalistic system, socialistic capitalism, or socialism? Mixed economy. So socialistic capitalism, I think, is the technical term, is a mixed economy. Black Widow or Harley Quinn? Harley Quinn, definitely. Would you agree to boxing match with world champion for $10 million as long as I didn't have to win? Sure. I got $10 million for losing. I just go in and be like, I've been hit and faint and then lose, and I'd be fine. $10 million. But do you know the harm it causes? What, drugs? Like, if people consensually choose to smoke cigarettes even though they know they could get cancer, then they have the right to do that. Yes, hair salons are expensive. Very, very expensive. Hey, Frank, you back yet?
Yeah, I'm here. I was
Okay.
going to ask you if you want me to keep asking questions.
Yeah, we could hear like lots of background noise. Sounded like your keys and scratching and being murdered.
Can you hear me now clearly, or
Yep.
is it still bad?
Yeah. T-Jump, what % do you tip waitresses on average? I think 15 to 20-ish. Is running everything off contracts moral, immoral? Where is the line? Contracts are moral if people consent to them. If they don't consent to them, then they're not moral. So they're only moral if you consent. That's the line. If you consent to agreeing to a contract, then it's moral to oblige the thing you consent to. Yvonne, would you ever try psychedelics? Probably not. Drugs have always had a very negative impact on me, so I'd probably not try them unless I was paid a large sum of money. How do you ensure people consent to the contract? Well, you just make it a law of physics that if they agree to it, they must do it or something. But I really don't think that there's a pragmatic way to do that unless it's like legal, put them in jail or something. But like if we were in the best of all possible worlds and they agreed to it, they would literally just make it a law of physics in their universe that if they agreed to the contract. I don't want asking. I'll answer your questions. I don't know what that means. Your social security number is immoral, obviously. I don't know what that means. I don't think so. Do you agree that fine-tuning is the best argument for believers? No. Fine-tuning is a terrible argument that's easily debunked. The best argument is the Hindu prediction of the age of the earth. That's the best argument for God. It seems if we're trying to emulate the best of all possible worlds, we do everything by contracts. We can't be sure what it means to consent to. Well, no, in the best of all possible worlds, the laws of physics would build themselves based off of your consent. So if you consented to fly, you would then be able to fly. So you wouldn't need contracts in the best of all possible worlds. The contracts are a thing in this world because we aren't there. Maybe once about the cause. The cause of the Big Bang was quantum fields that existed before the Big Bang. Have you seen Demon Slayer anime series and or The Last Airbender? Yes, I've seen both. Those are both very great animes. What caused the Big Bang? Quantum fields.
My internet's back, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it keeps going out.
It was pretty rough right there. It's back now. Do you want me to keep asking questions, or are you just going to keep answering questions on the live feed?
That's fine. I don't care, but probably both. Will your own AI eventually destroy us? No. My AI will have my objective morality programmed into it, and it will create the best of all possible worlds. Efont, what's your opinion on First Amendment auditors and sovereign citizens? They are people who have a very strange hobby of wanting to test the law Many of them do it legally, many of them don't. I really don't care. All right, Frank, you got a question?
Okay. Yeah. The Bible contains hundreds of fulfilled prophecies, hundreds
it
of years after it was written. How would that be possible without God?
Well, it's possible without God. It would raise the evidence of a God very significantly, but it's just false. So, ZPD, hey Tom, why is the Hindu statement about the approximate age of the Earth evidence of a God instead of evidence of someone did science and wrote it in a book? Because there's no way for them to have found out what the age of the Earth was back then. They just literally didn't have the means. So, the ability to accurately predict the age of the Earth back then would have been pretty impressive, as long as they had more predictions. So it was mostly just like a lucky guess, but there was no way they could have possibly figured that out with science back then. Like we didn't discover the cosmic microwave background until like 50 years ago, and that required the Hubble telescope. And even then we didn't know the age of the Earth until it was calculated from measuring it very precisely wavelengths, which requires like light spectroscopy. So there was no way they could have done that back then. All right, Frank, got another question?
Yes, sir. All right. Let's see. Okay, Jesus' disciples went from being terrified of death to being willing to die for their belief that Jesus rose from the dead. If Jesus didn't rise, what do you think changed their mind?
Bereavement delusion that they thought was a resurrection. So if they thought it was a resurrection, it would change their mind, even if it wasn't.
Let's see. There are hundreds of varieties of unbelief. How do you know yours is the right one?
I don't understand the question. Like, my version is just, I don't think there's any evidence. So until evidence is presented, mine would be right. Lucor asks, do you believe owning breeding pets will be immoral and unethical in the future, just as circus is now considered immoral? Yes. Well, sort of. So, like, it would only be immoral if the animals didn't consent. So if you did it, like, just like pets or something, and pets seem to be fine with hanging out and eating food and sleeping, then that probably wouldn't be considered immoral. Iffy Marashi, could we play chess sometime? Sure. If you're on my Discord or Facebook or something, you could message me when I'm online and we can play chess sometime.
That'd be fun. All right. All right, here we go. There's more evidence that Jesus Christ lived, died, and came back to life than for just about any other event in ancient history. If God did not exist or Jesus' claims to be God were not true, then how would you explain his resurrection?
So there's not evidence he rose. There is zero evidence he actually rose from the dead. There's evidence of people thinking he did, which is evidence of bereavement delusions. What was the second part of the question?
Let's see. If God did not exist or Jesus' claims to be God were not true, then how would you explain his resurrection? That's all it's asking.
I mean, with his resurrection, it's possible to have a resurrection without a God. Like, there could just be aliens or something did it. But if he did actually resurrect, that would be evidence of a God. Efont, I'm sure you've heard of the heat problem of young earth creationism. Do you think it's scientifically the best defeater for their view? If not, what do you consider to be better? No, I don't think it's a problem, because if there really was an all-powerful being, then the heat problem wouldn't be a problem. He could just materialize things from nothing without heat. So I don't think the heat problem is a problem for the young earth creationists, because they could just say God did it. What I think is the actual problem is the scientific evidence we have today in the fossil record. It seems like God lied in the Bible, and that would be their biggest problem, because if God lied in the Bible, that's a contradiction internally. And so internal contradictions with young earth creationism's belief in the Bible is what would be the best defeater. Do you prefer sexy abs Jesus on the cross or suffering in agony Jesus on the cross? I prefer Obi-Wan Kenobi. That is labeled Jesus.
Luke Skywalker.
I got another question.
Yes, I do. All right. What do you think makes so many Christians able to live radically different lives from the way they used to live prior to becoming Christians, even to the point of forgiving their abusers for terrible crimes?
Any kind of emotional transformation can cause that. So that happens to people who take lots of drugs or have epileptic seizures or have cancer or near-death experiences. Anything that can cause a significant chemical interaction in the brain can cause neurological pathways to change in a significant way. And so that's how. Would if God were irrational and he could that ever he want? That is not a coherent sentence.
Here's another one, Tom. If your brain is merely the unplanned result of evolution by natural selection aimed at survival and nothing else, what makes you think you can trust your reasoning to discover the truth rather than just whichever belief is best for survival?
Because your brain can't make you have a belief that doesn't correspond to reality. Like you can't imagine a round square. You can't do anything that would violate the laws that govern reality. And so we can use the beliefs that we know are the foundation of that, like logic or whatever, to build more other beliefs that are also rational. So because evolution can't make us believe things like a round square or imagine things like a round square, it can't give us 100% false beliefs. There are some beliefs that must give us that are true because they correspond to reality. Since our brains are in reality, it must obey the same laws.
All right. Here's another one. If no God, why would anything objectively matter?
Because you can have morality without God. That's how. Ifi Marashi asks, my friend, what are your general thoughts on theism? I think it's wrong. I think it's not supported by the evidence. Is it good for people to look to if it brings them some type of fulfillment and security? Sure. I think if it makes you happy, whatever makes you happy, you should do. Or would you oppose it overall? I think there are better substitutes for it. But I think that right now there are better alternatives, but it does give people lots of happiness, and so they should do what makes them happy. Jody W., what color will you dye your hair at 20,000 subs? Whatever people pay me to dye it. I can do the rainbow thingy. That's fine.
Oh, here's a good one, Tom. If no God, how did our DNA get programmed with such incredible complex language and instructions?
Evolution.
Oh, what about this one? If no God, why is there so much good in the world?
Morality exists without God, so that's why. Why doesn't evolution explain human morality? It can, but I think that morality is a bigger thing than humans. I think that there's going to be a morality through all species everywhere in the universe, so including things that didn't evolve. So that's why evolution wouldn't explain all morality. What makes you think God should be rational? Maybe he just make the world that way? Well, if it's the Christian God of the Christian Bible, I would grant that that is definitely irrational. But I don't know if there's possible, I guess. The irrational God, evil God. Most people just think he's the grounds of rationality. So it's more rational to think that it's just made up by humans. Lucor, your thoughts on free will argument for the non-existence of God, whereby the God for classical theism cannot have both free will and foreknowledge of his own future decisions. Yeah, trying to show contradictions in God's nature is a good way to argue against God for sure. Efont, if AI robots in the future can match porn star status and realism, do you think the population would decrease from less procreation? Yes. I think eventually we're going to be Matrix level in the Matrix and be able to do whatever we want and not actually reproduce like at all. So yes, we know for a fact that as technological progress grows, we have less reproduction. Why should we give morality any special qualities beyond opinions of people and how they evaluate other actions of humans? Because I think morality is, again, a thing that will be present in all minds all throughout the universe. So I think it's definitely going to be beyond humans. It's got to be something else, some greater kind of a pattern beyond just humans. Man Bear Pig, do you prefer debating general theists or people with specific belief systems like a Calvinist, for example? I prefer debating general theists. I don't really care about Bible beliefs. This bores me. So I think that specific beliefs are boring and more general philosophical arguments are more entertaining. Science Ultimatum with Jason Torn, blonde, brunette, or redhead? I prefer blondes, but I'm currently dating a brunette and she's pretty gorgeous. So she's up there with the blondes. So it's just rare. It's rare to find a brunette that cute.
I'm into redheads myself, but that's just me. You want another question, Tom?
I have a few still lined up. If you thought your God was real, what would he expect from us? I guess that's a question for somebody else because I don't think God is real. What would you think about Baskelbet? I don't know what that means. All right, you can ask another one.
All right. Where do you think the laws of logic come from?
They describe the way nature is. Made up by humans to describe the way nature is.
All right. The next one would be, are the laws of logic made of matter and energy? But I guess...
Sort of. They are descriptions made up by humans to describe matter and energy.
Okay. The Bible says every good and perfect gift is from the Father above, i.e. God. To whom are you grateful for the good things in your life? Again, this is a Christian website. So anyway, to whom are you grateful for the good things in your life, Tom?
Porn, prostitution, sugar companies, Pepsi, Coke, restaurants, good chefs. Those are the ones I'm thankful for.
Is everything in the universe really just matter and energy?
Most likely.
Yeah. And if you thought yes, was that thought made of matter and energy?
What?
If you said yes to that previous question, everything's made of matter and energy, was that thought made of matter and energy?
Yes. T-Jump, who is the hottest trans woman in your opinion, not including Sarah Jessica Parker? I don't know.
Do you like Arda Eden? Do you think she's attractive?
Who? Oh, no.
That one girl you debated.
No, not really, no.
Oh, no. All right. All right. The next question is, are you ready to learn about Jesus, Tom?
If he can pay me enough.
Let's start a Bible study right now. All right, Tom. That's all I got. Now I'm gonna keep looking for more questions, so cool.
Man, Felix says Blair White. I'm not attracted to Blair White either.
Ooh, what about this one? 10 questions that an atheist can't answer. What about that one?
Sure.
All right, let's see it. Does science answer everything?
No, but it answers the things we can't answer.
Why do atheists care if people worship God?
Because it has an impact on society and politics that is bad.
Remember, these are 10 questions that atheists can't answer, people. Can nothing create something?
No. No, the answer is no, it cannot.
No, it cannot. All right. How do you know that God doesn't exist?
Because there's been no evidence provided to differentiate he's not just a thing in people's imaginations.
All right. What is the origin of life?
Abiogenesis.
Where does our morality come from?
Laws of physics.
Tom, you're just answering one-liners. I like that. If you have evidence of God, would you become a Christian?
No, God is an immoral monster who drowned millions of babies. So I would not worship him, even though I believed he exists. If there was evidence, I'd still think he was an evil moral monster.
What about this one? This is another question atheists can't answer.
Why are there no observable transitional forms in the present?
There are literally all of them.
Exactly. All right. Here we go. Do you live according to what you believe or what you lack belief in? Oh, I already asked you that one, but
Both. So like if
yeah, exactly.
I do not jump off a cliff because both I believe I will hit the ground and splat, and I believe there is not a trampoline there, for both of the reasons of what I do believe and what I don't believe or what I act on. Mr. Boss asks, what do you think of Pascal's wager? I think Pascal's wager is a stupid argument because there is no probabilistic difference between belief in a God and not belief in a God getting you into heaven. You are equally as likely to get into heaven whether you believe in God or believe in potatoes. So that's whether or not a God exists. So whether or not a God exists, the probability of belief in God getting you into heaven is exactly the same as the probability of not believing in God will get you into heaven. Therefore, Pascal's wager is debunked.
All right, this is another question atheists can't answer. If God does not exist, will you not lose your soul when you die?
If there is a soul, then there are things that could happen to it without a God. Like there are different religions that have no God but still have souls, and so no, you don't need a God.
Tom, do you pray? Or have you prayed in the past?
To porn stars.
What's your source of hope?
Also porn stars.
Oh my gosh. Oh man. These questions are great, by the way. Christians write the best questions for atheists.
What Tim West asks, what are the chances that dark matter doesn't exist and the physicists are wrong about their understanding of gravity? Well, they're definitely not right. So we know they're wrong to some degree about their understanding of gravity. I think it's unlikely that dark matter isn't a thing that causes a gravitational pull. We just, because we observe it, we just don't know what's causing it. So dark matter is definitely a thing. We just don't know what it is. It could just be another field or a different kind of collective fluctuations in gravity, but it's still a thing.
Hey Tom, this is an interesting one. Do you consider atheism your religion? Considering your whole position and everything.
Sort of. I think I'm going to make atheism into a religion, but it isn't one yet. I'd like to make it one. If you were forced to join a religion, which religion would it be? Probably Jainism. Jainism is the most moral religion. Oh, nope. I would go with the one that pays me the most. Maybe Scientology or what's it, Joel Osteen? If I could be like a pastor like Joel Osteen, I'd do the Joel Osteen thing.
How much money would it cost for someone to convert you to Christianity, Tom? That's my own question.
I think I have it saved as $1 million a month on my Patreon, and I'll convert to Christianity.
Nice. All right, let me hit you with a couple more. All right. Do you think religion can be a positive experience for certain people?
Sure, of course it is.
All right. What are your views about an afterlife?
Possible but unlikely.
Right.
Somebody in the chat asked, do I know anything about biblical
where do you find guidelines for good values, morals, and ethics?
Laws of physics? But somebody in the chat asked, do I know anything about biblical entomology? I don't know what that even means. Like that's entomology is like bugs. Do they have bugs or something? I don't know what that means. Did you lose connection again, Frank?
No, I'm here.
All right.
And I'm just looking for questions, brother. I'll be finding them soon, and I'll keep asking you. Most of these kind of run together because it's basically just Christian websites, and I want to ask some really good ones. So,
TP Seeker, could dark matter just be a shadow from everything not producing light? No. Shadow. No, because it's things that don't reflect light. It wouldn't be produce light. Things that don't reflect light, but it wouldn't be a shadow. Doesn't make any sense. If it doesn't reflect light, it probably wouldn't create a shadow.
So what'd you do for the atheist day the other day, Tom? Anything interesting?
Wait, what?
There was like an atheist. Yeah.
I was invited to do give the questions to reasons to believe for the atheist day. That was it.
Oh, okay. Well, you can send them this one, I guess.
What is time? Frank asked me this yesterday. Time is a field. It is the fourth dimension of the space-time field.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I think that was me and Jen. She said it was the something about the shadow of a shadow of something. I don't remember. Maybe she
It
can
is
clarify.
the 3 + 1 8 dimension of the onion tree. Isaiah Ellen, if the universe had an infinite amount of time and an infinite amount of chances, wouldn't God exist since there's a chance that he exists? No, unless there's like a chance maker, unless like the universe had a chance maker and everything that had a chance, it would just generate it. But that's not, I think, a thing. So simply the fact that we can imagine it existing or there's no logical contradiction doesn't mean that the universe is likely going to create it. And it obviously probably couldn't create something that created itself. So, oh, come on, please don't devolve into the Dillahuntty, I'm so moral I couldn't worship God, even if he's real boo argument. Of course we would. As rational, non-delusional, practical. No. Is time travel possible? Maybe, maybe not. Don't know. That is would I convert to God under threat of hell? Probably not. And I'm probably just too selfish to ever worship something else. So I probably wouldn't do it for that reason. Not because I have the moral high ground, but because I'm just too selfish to worship anything else.
Yeah, why would God even require worship in the first place? I guess that's my question.
All praise to the holy chance maker.
All right, Tom. When people have embraced atheism, the historical results can be horrific, as the regimes of Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot, who saw religion as a problem. So, basically, the question is, do you think atheism will lead to these kind of problems in the future?
No, because the vast majority of atheists don't do those things. We can just look at atheist societies today with the vast majority of atheists, and they have the least crime and violence. So the fact that some bad people in the past did is not evidence that atheism as a whole does. Don't things become more likely over time, or am I mistaken? Things become more likely over time if there's a chance of them happening in time. So like the chance of rolling 10 sixes in a row goes up the longer you roll sixes, but in a universe with no dice, the chance of sixes going up is 0. TP Seeker, dark matter isn't a shadow. It's not that we see darkness. It's that we don't see anything that reflects light, but we see a significant amount of gravitational pull that we don't see. So it's not about shadows. Lucky 7 Wolfen, do you affirm the necessity of referencing the necessity of our God for referencing the necessity of facts necessarily referencing God? No. Potato.
Oh man. Still looking.
Hello, Necromancer 99.
Hello, what's up?
Is that from Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Yeah.
Got any questions, Necro?
Yeah, I just was wanting to know if you advocate TJump, if you advocate positive atheism.
Sure, I'm happy to take either position. I'm happy to
Gotcha.
defend positive atheism. I can say that it's rational to say that God does not exist because everything starts off as imaginary until demonstrated otherwise. Since no evidence has been provided, it's rational to conclude it's just a figment of people's imagination, and therefore God does not exist.
Would that mean that black swans are justified saying that they don't exist, or like?
Sort of. Like you could say that if you have no evidence has been provided for a black swan and someone says a black swan exists, you could say no, it doesn't until you provide evidence. It's rational to conclude yes.
Gotcha. It's of course inductive though, right?
Yep.
Okay. Because I don't know, I mean, just when I hear the claim there is no God, I mean, I see it as kind of like not a claim of knowledge, but a claim of specifically a null hypothesis. But
that would still be a claim of knowledge, like justified true belief. Null hypothesis can still be a justified true belief.
yeah. Yeah. That's really what I was wanting to know. So.
All right, I'm getting hungry. I need to get some food. So I'm going to head off.
All right, Tom. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. And have yourself a good one, all right?
Yep. See you guys later.
Bye, Tom.